Okay, I wanted to get back to what I was talking about the Mandaneans. Um, I left off on last video talking about any evidence if the current Mandaeans used any visionary compounds in their rituals, and the answer is no, they do not. But within their holy books, they have a book called the Softa de Sombra. I'm probably pronouncing it slightly incorrect. It's an Aramaic verbiage. I'm not very good at speaking Aramaic, but the Softa de Sombra is a book all about the plant Pungenum hirmala. And the Pungenum hirmala plant, this is what the Pungenum hirmala plant looks like, grows throughout the Middle East, all the way from Syria and Egypt, all the way to India. Nowadays, it grows pretty much all over the world. It's found in the American. It's been introduced to the American Southwest, to steppes of Russia, all over. But originally, in antiquity, it was native to Iran and Persia, the Iranian High Plateau, and the ancient writings of the Mandaean scriptures venerate this plant, primarily as a medicinal plant, as well as containing. They venerate it also for some kind of spiritual powers, but within their writings, it's never described as being consumed, but it is venerated as the prime healing medicine. And so you give a little background on the Pungenum hirmala plant. It produces these seeds. These Pungenum hirmala seeds are what contain the alkaloids, the beta carbolines, and that is what, when consumed, the beta carbolines inhibit the body from breaking down DMT. So if you go out and you find an acacia tree that has DMT in the leaf tissue, and you consume it, it will do absolutely nothing to you, nothing to any animal, any mammal, because there's an enzyme in the mammalian and human gut which actually breaks down DMT before it actually is allowed to pass through the blood-brain barrier, and it has no effect. Now, when you consume this seed, it will inhibit this enzyme in your body. And when you then consume that acacia leaf, the DMT will pass right through your gut, absorb into your body, and absorb past the blood-brain barrier and enter the brain, inducing the visionary experience. Now remember, DMT is a natural neurotransmitter in the human mind. So the question is, why these mechanisms exist? Why are there the connection between these plants? It's all a great mystery for many people. But nonetheless, this plant was venerated. Now, the Pungenum hirmala plant is also venerated in Islam. In there's hadiths in Islamic scriptures that describe Muhammad saying that this is the blessed plant of Islam. There's an angel watching over every leaf and every stem of Isfad. That's actually what this plant is called. If you go to any Persian supermarket in LA, New York, San Francisco, Chicago, go to a Persian supermarket and ask them if they have Isfad seeds. They will probably walk you over to the spice counter, the spice rack, and there'll be a bag with all the other bags of spices, and it'll say Isfad on it. And there'll be a bunch of Pungenum hirmala seeds. Now, in Persia, in the Zoroastrian religion, as well as within many traditions of Islam, it is customary to burn the seeds of Pungenum hirmala to ward away the evil eye, to ward away evil. Isfad, also this plant Pungenum hirmala, is the prime mystical, magical plant of the Islamic religion. Now, a lot of people don't know that because in the West, frankly, we don't discuss Islam very much. It's not really brought up. But when discussing sacred visionary plants of the Middle East, I think it's kind of important. Now, there is no literature that currently exists that says Isfad, Punjab Hirmala, was ever mixed with acacia, with DMT containing acacia. Now, for some people, it's a jump to say that, well, if the Gnostics, Mandaeans, the Sethian Gnostics, knew about this plant in antiquity, and they considered it sacred, and they were consuming it for its purgative properties to purge out worms and purge out stomach illnesses, then wouldn't it be logical that somebody mixed it with probably the most common of all trees in the Middle East, the acacia? I mean, there's probably 4 or 5 different species of acacia in the Middle East that contain DMT in significant quantities in their leaf tissue. Now, the other part of the book that I went on to explore was ancient evidence that the acacia was known about and consumed medicinally. Particularly in ancient Egypt, it was a prime medicinal plant, and it was also considered one of the sacred plants of the gods. I go into this whole thing in the research in my book, basically making the case why these plants would have been mixed. They grow in the area, the visions were happening, the visions are exactly the same as these that are produced through these plants. And we have evidence that the Gnostics venerated the acacia tree, they venerated Punjab Hirmala, and certain groups, not the Mandaeans, but other groups, were, particularly around Egypt, and particularly the Hermetic tradition, were known to have consumed libations, visionary cups, which produced visions which are characteristic of the experiences produced from DMT and botanical DMT sources in ayahuasca. Now, ayahuasca is the name of the visionary vine from the Amazon, but other plants with the same chemicals will create the same experience. So in South America, you have the ayahuasca vine. And the ayahuasca vine has the same chemical compounds as Punjab Hirmala. These are little seed pods I was telling you about earlier. This is the Punjab Hirmala plant. The seeds are in here. The seeds is what contains the beta-carbolines that allow the DMT to work in the human body. Now, the beta-carbolines in Punjab Hirmala, as in ayahuasca, are mildly visionary on their own. They'll produce mild visions, but they're primarily purgative. They'll make you throw up. And if there's no modern medicine, it's beneficial as a medicine. Actually, purging was a primary medicine in the early 19th century until modern antibiotics came about. So, from a medicinal standpoint, the probabilities that these plants were not only were consumed is very high, and then mixed and consumed is just as high. So if anybody ever mixed these two plants at any point in antiquity, they would have had an ayahuasca DMT experience. So I think that we can make a pretty solid case that it was going on. Now, this image here is the only surviving Gnostic ritual cup in existence. This cup is a photograph of the inside bowl of the cup. This cup exists in a private collection, a private Swiss collection of a wealthy individual in Switzerland. There's other photos of the cup's exterior. I actually took this photo of the interior of the cup because somebody took the time when they made the cup to make this interesting image. And you'll see it's a bunch of initiates standing in a circle, basically naked. There's essentially a spiral going down with a serpent in the center of the spiral. Now, this cup wasn't a Sethian Gnostic or a Hermetic Gnostic. It was actually a Orphic. The Orphic Gnostics were a different sect of Gnostics who were known to practice nude rituals, a little bit more heavy into magic, more pagan undertones, and they venerated the serpent as a wise teacher. That in the story of Adam and Eve, the serpent was the source of wisdom, and basically the source of Mother Earth, if you will, or the consciousness of the planet, if you will. The source of knowledge and wisdom, and that it was, in fact, good, not evil. So a little bit of a different undertone. The Orphic Gnostic tradition is still classified as Gnosticism, although I would maybe consider it the far left branch of Gnosticism. If you consider the Egyptian Hermetic tradition as the pure root, off of that would be the Sethian Gnostic tradition. Then you have the Christian Gnostic traditions, and then you have the Orphic. So there was a lot of different sects and groups. They all shared one thing in common: visionary rituals, a belief in one God, mystery initiation rituals that were essentially secret, but gave the initiates physical experience of the spirit world in some fashion. Now, what that spirit world experience was, and if it was all the same, we don't know. Now, there was Gnostic sects that did not have visionary rituals. They just had teachings that were visionary, like the modern Mandaeans. The modern Mandaeans have teachings that are visionary and mystical in nature, but they do not practice any visionary or mystical rites. Again, I talk about some of this in my book. In the book Gnostic Visions, I go over some of this and why some of these things took place, as far as how the different groups may have evolved and separated off from one another. So that's about it. That's my introduction into Gnosticism. This is a photograph of a ayahuasca ritual taking place at night. We have a bottle of ayahuasca here with some religious items. Another bottle of ayahuasca with some kind of flowers or something. This is an image I thought was powerful. It's a visionary orb of light. I've actually encountered things in my vision very similar to this. I thought it was very coincidental that somebody created a similar image. This is a neat picture. Obviously, it looks like an angel. Now, in my visionary experiences, I've encountered luminous beings that look just like this. A little less bright and snazzy, but essentially flying, luminous, angelic creatures. So it's interesting how I've come across art created by other people who have had visionary experiences, and there does seem to be a very clear continuity of experiences, or people seeing similar cognitive phenomenon. Anyway, that's all for now, and I think in the next clip I'll go over a little bit more into Gnosticism, Gnostic visions, and some of the research that I've gone over that relates Gnostic visions to the DMT and ayahuasca experience. So till next time, take care.